It may be early, but the race for governor is heating up. 2 Republicans now saying they want Laura Kelly's job. Plus, when is a woman not a woman? Lawmakers fight over transgender rights and school sports. And a state Senate leader arrested for DUI. What does this mean for the rest of the session? That's what we're talking about right now on Kansas Week. Welcome to Kansas Week. I'm your host, Pilar Pedraza. It was the headline that rocked the State House this week. A Senate leader arrested for drunk driving, accused of hitting the highway going the wrong direction. KAKE's Eli Higgins takes a look at what police say happened and why some are calling for resignation.
We are getting another caller about the wrong way driver.
On an otherwise quiet morning in Topeka, panicked drivers started calling 911.
911, what is your emergency?
I'm heading home right now, and I just saw a car get on the highway going the wrong direction. I'm driving towards Topeka Boulevard, and there is a car going the wrong way on the highway.
Several more just like this, one after the other.
Is there a vehicle going the wrong direction on the highway, sir?
Yes, ma'am, they about hit me, but I'm okay. I'm fine.
What was described as a large white truck or SUV led police on a chase.
We do have authority to use stop sticks on that vehicle on I-70.
Eventually, officers caught up.
In custody, all units can slow down.
Turns out, investigators say the driver behind the wheel was Kansas Senate Leader Gene Solentrop. They arrested him for DUI and other charges. But just hours later, a judge ordered his release, saying there wasn't enough evidence to support his arrest.
I'm honestly I think, as shocked as anybody else.
It's something that hits close to home for former lawmaker Stephanie Yeager, who used to work side by side with Solentrop.
A woman drove through and she hit his customer, and then she hit him and very violently threw him into the side of his truck. He never woke up again.
A drunk driver hit and killed her brother. Just a day after the incident, Solentrop was back at work on the Senate floor, something Yeager says is wrong.
It just makes it super egregious that, you can just go the next day and continue creating more laws that Kansans have to follow.
Yeager is calling for Solentrop to resign and says she hopes he learns from the situation so that it never happens again.
What happens the next time? Will there be someone like my brother on the side of that highway doing his job, and then he doesn't get to come home to his family?
Eli Higgins, KAKE News, on your side.
A lot to unpack there, and here to help me do that, we have Phil Journey, a former state senator, Republican from Wichita, joining me on the desk. And joining me by Zoom, we have former state representative Tim Hodge, a Democrat from Newton. Thank you both so much for being here. Tim, since I've got you up, I'm going to start with you. First, let's talk about the impact of all of this on getting work done at the State House. We're talking about one of the leaders that sets the agenda about how things happen being sidelined. What does that do to getting work done?
Well, I think the gentleman in question did a good job on naming the fact that this is a distraction. I believe, from what I've heard, he's pulled himself away from the day-to-day business and is allowing others to continue with the business of Kansas, which I think is a good choice. Personally, I've never seen some of the reasoning on his side of the aisle as far as his side of politics. This time he was on the wrong side of the road. But I just don't understand why this could happen to someone in such a position, because it's just disappointing. It's really disappointing. I hope he gets through it, but hope everyone learns a lesson here. And I get another comment is just how, the culture needs to recognize this, because there's unlimited amounts of food and beverage that can be spent on legislators, and maybe that's a question when folks go up there, they just need to take it easy.
Yeah. One of the things that Stephanie Yeager talked about when KAKE interviewed her was a culture of alcohol at the State House, as she described it, coming mostly from lobby functions. You spent 5 years up there. Did you kind of see something similar to that? Have concerns been raised about that before?
There was more than one occasion when I went to one of my colleagues and said, let me give you a ride home and we'll come get your car in the morning. Mm-hmm. It is basically legislator roulette. Every year or two, somebody gets popped. I think it's unfortunate that the partisan statements got in with the former legislator. I don't remember her saying anything like that when Jim Ward got his DUI. So, the reality is, though, that if those charges, they have up to 5 years to file those charges. If there is a felony evade and elude, of course, that's the most serious thing that could happen. That's a severity level 9 person felony. The first offense DUI is a Class B misdemeanor. The maximum penalty is a $1,000 fine. I think it's $1,200 now, and 6 months in the jail. He would be eligible for diversion, but that is a discretionary relief provided by the Shawnee County District Attorney. It's obviously Highway Patrol or Sheriff, so it'll go to the district court rather than the municipal court. I think it will be watched more. He has stepped back. He has assigned his duties as Senate Majority Leader to the Assistant Majority Leader. Basically what they do is they set the debate calendar for the Senate. We'll just have to see how things play out. I know that it's hard for people, but we have to remember that even senators are innocent until proven guilty, just like everyone else. And I'm a little surprised at what was described as the judge's ruling, but we don't know the facts, and I certainly can't comment on them. So it's something that I think legislators need to be made aware of. And they say experience is the best teacher, but it's usually the hardest lesson.
Yeah, and there have been calls for his resignation outside of course, former State Representative Stephanie Inger, but also the Kansas City Star in an op-ed piece has called for his resignation, saying, and others as well has said maybe it's time to step back, deal with other issues.
I don't know of a legislator that has gotten in this kind of trouble and has resigned. There have been several. I mean, and then there was another legislator that got in trouble because he has his intern driving him back and forth so he wouldn't get a DUI. So, they're like darned if they do, darned if they don't, and, they should just go and mingle and eat and not drink, I suppose, would be the reasonable answer. Just stop serving alcohol and then it goes away. But I got to tell you, the culture 60 years ago was much crazier than it is today or has been recently in the legislature. I can remember sitting there talking to legislators that had been there 40, 50, 60 years ago and telling me what went on. And, my eyes would go wide and I'm absolutely aghast.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, definitely a different culture going on there to a certain extent. Yeah. Well, with all of this happening as several highly charged debates were going on in Topeka this week, one of those debates dealt with the definition of what it means to be a biological female and who can play girls' sports in Kansas schools. Alec Gartner from KSN's Capitol Bureau explains.
Some lawmakers say they want to make sure there's an even playing field for girls, but others say banning a specific group of people isn't fair. Language in a new bill the Senate is debating on Wednesday specifically points out physical differences between men and women. It also says public schools and state college teams have to set up designations for sports, male, female, or co-ed. The Kansas State High Schools Activities Association and State Board of Regents will have to develop a way to implement the change. Supporters say they've heard enough people complain that the bill should pass.
What we heard in testimony is there are parents and there are student athletes that want to compete against folks that have that same physical makeup.
But opponents say this isn't a big issue and would be a form of bullying.
They are dealing with so much anyway, every day, just to keep their mental and emotional equilibrium in place. To add this is just one more layer of disrespect, of insult.
The bill would prevent men from playing in women's sports, but does not stop females from playing on sports teams designated for males. If passed by the Senate, it would still need to go through the House. Reporting at the Capitol, I'm Alec Gartner.
And a lot of emotions involved with that debate. Tim, as we look at this, is this something that is a surprise that it's coming up? I mean, lots of folks saying, do we even need this bill? Keisha already has a protocol in place. Really, in the state of Kansas, it only involves about 5 students.
It's one of those things where you can look in look in our rearview mirror and just see how this has come up again. And it seems like it just seems to be a distraction. Like you said, there's only 5 or 6 students that are involved in this situation. It's interesting how the party that talks about freedom and liberty and all those ideas can't trust people to make their own decisions regarding this. Can't trust the parents or the school district or the coaches involved to deal with these things, let alone the kid who is obviously working through issues. So this is not a statewide issue. This is the same type of distraction that occurs whenever the bigger issues are out there, such as taxes and who pays them and how to do that fairly. So whenever we get these types of deals come through, whether it be gay marriage or bathrooms or transgender sports, when there's already a law or a policy on the books, it's a distraction from what really needs to happen. And it's sad that we spend all this time on something, albeit it's an important issue to some, but the larger issues of taxes, health insurance, school funding, and the fact that we spend so much time on these other bills just to get people riled up and get people mad at their neighbors over these issues. It's really unfortunate. I wish we could focus on taxes and schools and hospitals.
And Phil, I can tell by your face, you took issue with a couple of things Tim had to say there.
I agreed with a couple of things he said, honestly, Pilar. It's the whole, this is what I call a postcard bill. There's one purpose for this bill, and that's to put a postcard in your mailbox the next election. It's pretty clear that there are 165 legislators in Topeka, and they all don't have something to do. And so somebody thought of this one, and they started running it. The opponents of the bill, I think their most cogent argument is that this is a local issue. The athletics commission, this high school, whatever it is, they've already dealt with it. Let the local school board deal with it, and it's really not state jurisdiction, or it doesn't need to be. And I think that's, if it gets out of the Senate, it's going to fly through the House, and it'll come, and then I'm sure Kelly will just veto it. So, we're just kind of like spinning our wheels right now. They want to make postcards.
At the same time, however, getting out of the Senate, going to the House right now, if Kelly vetoes it, Republicans have a veto-proof majority right now.
Well, in one chamber, you don't know that they'll have it in the House. The House is the real question. They can't come up with 87 for the Life Amendment. So how are they going to come up with 87 to override the governor's veto? I think that they will find other things to do. We're in the time after turnaround and before we get to the crush at the end of the session, and everybody's trying to think of something to do so they can stay busy. So as we get closer to the end, these things will drop off as unnecessary things, because just like Tim said, there are things they have to do, like the budget, like taxes, like all those other things. And they always save those for the very end, so they've got plenty of time to maneuver and play and do deals or whatever they do. And so it never gets done to the end anyway, so there's nothing else for them to do but these silly things.
All right. Well, not the only big issue that involved Kansas kids on the debate floor this week. A bill that became surprisingly, to some at least, contentious would make the State Board of Education develop a gun safety curriculum that could start as early as kindergarten. House Bill 2089 aims to help Kansas kids know what to do when encountering a gun. It would require the Kansas State Board of Education to create curriculum guidelines for a gun safety education program. Local school boards would have the option to teach it in their district. It would be based on the National Rifle Association's Eddie Eagle Gun Safe program. Older students could be offered that training or the Kansas Department of Wildlife, Parks and Tourism's Hunter Education program. Supporters said this could help prevent accidents.
When's the last time you watched television? Tell me kids aren't already, when's the last time you played a video game? Give me a break. Kids are always introduced to firearms in every aspect of life. So why not teach them to be safe around them? It only makes sense. You're not going to avoid it. You're just not.
Some critics said a private organization's program shouldn't be involved in schools. Others said schools already have enough on their plate and this should be handled as an extracurricular activity. The bill passed 75 to 47 and now heads to the Kansas Senate. And Phil, I'm starting with you on this one.
Thank
You
you.
have a history with
Yes.
programs like this through your involvement with the NRA. Kind of just give us a better idea of what this program would look like.
Eddie Eagle has a program that has been around. In 1991 or 2, I was able to get the USD 259 to adopt the program. They ran it for a couple years. Basically what it does is it tells children ages 4 to 10 or so, and it comes with, it's a multimedia packet. It's got a comic book, it's got coloring papers, it's got videos, and like a big book they can read, you know, like in kindergarten or whatever. And basically it helps the kids understand that if they see a gun, they do 4 things. They stop, don't touch, tell an adult, leave the area. And, or I got them backwards. Okay, stop, don't touch, leave the area, tell an adult. Anyway, it has been provided to millions and millions of children across the country. It's one of our major projects with the 501c3, the NRA Foundation. And I expect that all of the objections to it are not the content, but simply the source, because of the bias that we see so many in this modern day age have against our association. I mean, you know, I'm dealing with an attorney general now that says I'm a terrorist. So, you know, it's unfortunate, but it does work. It does save lives. And I would commend the legislature, because this is not like our previous topic. This is something that will really make a difference. And it's reasonably inexpensive. It's about 35, 40 cents a kid. And we pay for, the NRA Foundation pays for a major portion of it.
I'm going to stop you on one point there. When you say it works, there have been so many studies out there that say it doesn't matter with young kids, especially early elementary age. You can teach them all you want. Don't touch. Go get an adult. But then you take kids who've been through training like that from their parents or whatever, and you put them in proximity to a gun, and the first thing they do is they reach out and grab it.
Well, you know, I would love to read that study, because the studies I've seen say that when they did an equivalency test where they gave some kids the program and then they didn't give some kids one, and they put them both in rooms and with cameras and everything and watched them. And the kids that went through the program, they did exactly the right thing. And the kids that didn't, they're picking it up and looking down the muzzle and trying to figure out if it's real or not. So, you know, I would love to read that. I would love to take a look at it. I would definitely look at their methodology of how they came up with that. But my experience has been contrary to that.
Well, and that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Thank you.
All right. And Tim, as we take a look at that, of course, one of the complaints that were made about this bill is that this is really something that shouldn't be handled in school, but be handled more as an extracurricular activity.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to handle this outside of school. And I go back to just the local control aspect of this. I'm not sure why this has to be pushed when any district can implement these curriculums. I think there's a couple other issues that are at play also. One is enshrining an actual provider of the curriculum into law. And I think that gets problematic, and they've probably done a lot of legal work, but it gets problematic when you enshrine a certain provider or company or entity, or in this case 501c3, with the sanctioned ability to provide curriculum as opposed to all others. And I know that it allows other groups involved, but it mentions their name. I think you open yourself up to an equal protection argument by other providers of the same curriculum that could just cost us a lot of money in legal equal protection lawsuits, where we pay the victims' fees, our fees, and fines. So I think the law needs to be reworded so that we don't just open ourselves up to a blatant equal protection problem. The other thing is, like I said, it's just something that we could do the schools could do on their own if the local districts want to do that. And so it just makes me cynical that the NRA would be pushing this. I mean, I don't know if they need money or something that would get them some money from the school districts, but it's just unnecessary. They can do it on their own. And it's just another one of those things that gets people riled up about who's for guns and who's against guns and who can have them, who can't. And it's just another one of those neighbor versus neighbor arguments that we don't need that anymore. We don't need any more fighting.
Okay, Phil, I can tell you've got a response very quickly.
What it takes for people to want to implement a program like this is the tragic death of a child. In USD 259, there were 3 children in 2 months that were killed in accidental shootings. And, you know, after we got the program in, and, you know, that dropped. There is no comparable program out there. And the reality is that I think the equal protection issue it's just not going to happen. Yeah. So, you know, it's a good program. It needs to be mandated. Hunter education, yeah, that one takes like 16 hours. I'm a hunter ed instructor too. So, you know, you can't do hunter ed. You can do Eddie Eagle in a half an hour with a classroom, and that's all you need. You know, you read the comic book for 15 minutes, you watch the video, you do some workbooks, you hand out certificates, you're done. Hunter ed is a significantly more involved program that takes
and
about 60 hours.
we're going to have to leave that there because
okay.
we've got at least one more thing to talk about. We're more than a year from the primary, but 2 Kansas Republicans are already vying for your vote, hoping to become the one who challenges Laura Kelly for the governor's office. I spoke one-on-one with both men earlier in the week.
Today, I'm announcing my campaign for governor.
After months of speculation, Derek Schmidt made it official Tuesday. He wants the state's top job. He says Kansas faces challenges coming out of the pandemic, challenges he thinks he's best qualified to solve. That includes many Kansans' biggest concern right now, the problems with the unemployment system at the Department of Labor.
I think finding and fixing those types of smoldering problems before they erupt into crises has to be a focus across the face of state government for the next governor.
In particular, what would you do to help those thousands of Kansans who can't pay their bills right now?
Get them their benefits.
But he shies away from asking the federal government for more money to help fix the Kansas system beyond what's already coming our way.
Begging for more money is not a substitute for fixing the problem.
He also says whoever takes office in January of 2023 will have a unique opportunity to help reshape Kansas education during a rare time when the state isn't under a school funding lawsuit.
And I say that deliberately because there will be another one. If we're on the path we're on, it will come someday. We have a rare opportunity to actually have a discussion about how we want to make this system better by working together.
Schmidt says he knows the state will face some hard choices between the services it provides and the amount of taxes the public can still support.
We can't be all things to all people. We have to set priorities, not because we wish to, but because the math requires it. Kansans will tell us what priorities they think are the most critical.
There is an opportunity to change the course from one where things are going backwards to one that's going forward.
And former Governor Jeff Collier says that opportunity comes with electing him to return to the governor's office next year. He hasn't officially announced he's running, but is already talking like the candidate he told me he is. Collier agrees with most that fixing the problems with the Department of Labor will be one of the biggest issues in this race. A lot of people right now are talking about the Department of Labor. I'm about to lose my house. I'm about to lose my car because I haven't gotten money that I was promised. What are you going to do to help those folks?
We need to deal with the fraud. We need to make sure the people that deserve the benefits get them. But the big thing is we need to stop relying on unemployment and get people back to work. And that's what it's about. But he says it won't be the only issue facing whoever takes office in January of 2023. With a Democrat in the White House, he says Kansas will need a governor to fight back against some of President Biden's initiatives. We're going to have to deal with some crazy regulations in agriculture, for example, or in health care. We're going to have to deal with those. And as a state, you want to make problems go away. You want to make them simpler. Now, these one-on-ones began when Derek Schmidt made an official announcement that he was running last week. Collier has not made that announcement yet, but when I asked him directly, said, yes, I am running. Now, Tim, I'm going to start with you on this. It feels like we just finished an election. Another one is starting. It seems like the governor's election is getting longer every round.
Well, it's really important because the governor's veto means that the other side has to have 84 and 27 and to overcome it and get their agenda through. So that Cedar Crest is really a really important office to win. I think Kansans are learning that if they only have one party in office, things like a 2012 tax cut that basically ruin all the state budgets from schools to judiciary to foster care are thwarted. So there is some major benefit in having both parties be represented well. I do just want to comment on Mr. Schmidt's run. I mean, he's got a lot to do right now. you've got utility funds out of control in some of these in the small towns in Kansas, and you have possible gouging going on, which is illegal. And that I don't understand why that's not being addressed by his office. I don't understand why his office is punting basically on the Department of Labor fraud that's occurred in our state, which is hundreds of millions of dollars, which is a lot of money, a substantial part of the budget. And why he is not making that a bigger part of his daily job or his staff's daily job is really disappointing. Rather than just blaming the governor or old equipment or whatnot, he is the Attorney General. He is supposed to be doing those things. On top of that, when I was in office and he was spending truckloads of money on unconstitutional litigation without any client control over the governor, who is just suing everybody. On top of that, this Biden administration lawsuit that he's a part of, when he's got the utility funds and the Department of Labor funds in trouble, it's just real. I don't understand his discretion. As far as Collier goes, I mean, he's Brownback's lieutenant governor. He was right-hand man while Medicaid was getting denied all Kansans. So if the Democrats can actually put together a solid message and stand by it and stay together,
Tim,
they have a shot.
I'm going to interrupt you right there because we're running out of time, and I want to get real quick to Phil here. We're a year out. Are we going to see more? We've already got two pretty big Republican names in this race. Are we going to see more candidates?
Okay, here's what I expect to occur. I think that this will pretty much freeze the field. Anybody else that comes in, the governor's race is pretty much a gadfly, and they're going to be down there in the single digits. I think what we're going to see too is we're going to see Chris Kobach run for Attorney General, and then we will see. I think that Derek Schmidt has the advantage, despite Tim's criticism. He hasn't lost a case in the United States Supreme Court. He's got the Kansas Supreme Court reversed at least twice that I can think of. When I talk in the legal community, it doesn't matter what party they're from, they all like him. They all think he's doing a good job. And the task he thinks the Attorney General's job entails, it does not.
All right. And we're going to have to leave it there, Phil, because we are out of time. Phil, Tim, thank you both so much for joining me this week. I've enjoyed our discussion. We'd love to hear what you think. Keep the discussion going on social media. Just look for Pilar Pedraza TV or PBS Kansas on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Stay safe and have a great week.